In the picturesque village of Eldenwood, where cobblestone streets wound between quaint cottages adorned with blooming flower boxes, 5-year-old Clara Thompson was known for her boundless curiosity and adventurous spirit. With her golden curls bouncing as she ran, Clara was a familiar sight, often accompanied by her faithful companion, Max, a golden retriever with a heart as big as his playful spirit. One sunny morning, the air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming daisies and the cheerful chirping of birds. Clara sat on the front porch of her home, her small feet swinging excitedly over the edge. Her mother, Mrs. Thompson, was busy tending to the garden, planting vibrant marigolds and fragrant lavender. "Mom," Clara called out, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Can I go to the woods today? Please." Mrs. Thompson paused, wiping her brow and glancing at the lush green trees that bordered their village. "The woods, you know they can be quite mysterious, Clara. But if you stay close to Max and don't wander too far, I suppose it would be all right." Clara's eyes sparkled with delight. "I promise I'll be careful. Max will keep me safe." She looked down at Max, who wagged his tail enthusiastically as if he understood every word. "All right then, Mrs. Thompson smiled, ruffling Clara's hair affectionately. "Just remember to come back before dinner." With a gleeful squeal, Clara jumped up and grabbed her little backpack, stuffing it with a few essentials, a snack of apple slices, a small bottle of water, and her favorite stuffed bunny for comfort. She donned her bright red rain boots, perfect for any adventure, and set off toward the woods with Max trotting beside her. As they approached the edge of the forest, Clara felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach. The trees towered above them like ancient giants, their leaves whispering secrets in the gentle breeze. Sunlight filtered through the branches, casting playful shadows on the ground. "Let's go explore," Clara exclaimed, taking Max's leash in hand and leading him down a narrow path that wound deeper into the woods. The further they ventured, the more Clara's imagination ran wild. She envisioned fairies dancing among the flowers and hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. "What do you think we'll find today, Max?" she asked as they walked. Max barked happily in response, his golden fur glistening in the sunlight. He sniffed at every intriguing scent along the way, wildflowers, damp earth, and even a curious squirrel that darted up a nearby tree. Clara giggled as she watched Max chase after butterflies that flitted just out of reach. "You're such a silly dog," she laughed, "but I love you." As they wandered further into the woods, Clara noticed how quiet it had become. The chirping birds seemed to fade away, replaced by an eerie stillness that made her pause. She looked around at the towering trees that loomed overhead and felt a twinge of uncertainty. "Maybe we should turn back," she said softly to Max. But before she could make up her mind, something caught her eye, a flash of color among the green foliage. "What's that?" Clara whispered excitedly as she approached a cluster of bright blue flowers that seemed to glow in the dappled sunlight. She knelt down to examine them closely when suddenly, a rustle in the bushes startled her. Clara jumped back and looked at Max, who stood alert beside her. His ears perked up as he sniffed at the air. "What was that?" she whispered nervously. Just then, from behind the bushes emerged an old owl with wise eyes and feathers that shimmered like silver in the light. "Who goes there?" he hooted playfully. Clara gasped in surprise but felt an instant sense of wonder at meeting such a majestic creature. "I'm Clara, and this is my dog Max. We're exploring." The owl blinked slowly and tilted his head curiously. "Exploring? Ah, young one, the woods hold many secrets and stories for those who dare to seek them." Clara's heart raced with excitement again. "Do you know any stories? Can you help us find our way?" The owl chuckled softly. "Perhaps I can help you find more than just your way, but first, let us see what adventures await you deeper within these enchanted woods." With newfound courage sparked by their encounter with Oliver the owl, Clara took a deep breath and nodded enthusiastically at Max. Together they stepped further into the heart of the forest, unbeknownst to them that this adventure would lead them to friendships beyond their wildest dreams. Clara and Max followed Oliver the owl deeper into the woods, their excitement bubbling over as they ventured further from the familiar trails of Eldenwood. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting a warm, golden glow around them, and Clara felt as if she had stepped into a storybook world. "Where are we going, Oliver?" Clara asked, her eyes wide with wonder as she looked up at the wise old owl perched on a low branch. "To a place where magic lives," Oliver replied, his voice deep and soothing. But remember, young Clara, the woods can be tricky. Stay close to your friend." He nodded toward Max, who was sniffing curiously at the ground. As they walked, Clara marveled at the sights and sounds around her. She spotted vibrant mushrooms dotting the forest floor and listened to the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. Max bounded ahead, chasing after a butterfly that danced just out of reach, his tail wagging furiously. "Look at him go," Clara giggled, her laughter echoing through the trees. "He's such a silly dog." But as they continued their adventure, Clara began to notice that the trees were growing denser and the path less clear. The sunlight that had warmed their journey began to fade as shadows stretched across the ground. "Oliver," Clara called out hesitantly, "are we lost?" The owl turned his head to look back at her with his wise eyes. "Not lost, dear Clara, just exploring uncharted territory. But it is wise to be cautious." Clara felt a flutter of unease in her stomach. She glanced around and realized that everything looked different now. The trees were taller and thicker, and she could no longer see the path they had come from. "Max," she called softly, but he was too busy investigating a nearby bush. Panic began to creep in as she took a few steps forward and realized she could no longer see Oliver. "Max, come here," Clara urged, her voice rising slightly in worry. Max trotted back to her side, his tongue lolling out in a happy grin as if he sensed her anxiety. Clara knelt down to hug him tightly. "What are we going to do? I don't know how to get back home." Just then, Oliver swooped down from above and landed gracefully on a branch nearby. "Fear not, little one. The woods may seem daunting, but they also hold guidance for those who seek it." Clara looked up at Oliver with hopeful eyes. "Can you help us find our way back?" "Of course," he replied with a reassuring hoot. "But first, you must learn to listen to nature itself. The woods speak in whispers if you pay attention." Clara took a deep breath and nodded. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the sounds around her, the rustling leaves, the distant chirping of birds, and even the soft patter of Max's paws on the ground. Slowly opening her eyes again, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. "Okay," she said with newfound determination. "What do we do next?" Oliver fluffed his feathers and pointed his wing toward a small stream that glimmered in the fading light. "Follow that stream, it will guide you toward familiar ground." With Max leading the way, Clara approached the stream and watched as it sparkled like diamonds under the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees. She felt more confident now. Perhaps this adventure wasn't so scary after all. As they walked alongside the stream, Clara noticed small fish darting beneath the surface and dragonflies flitting above like living jewels. She smiled at Max as he playfully splashed through the shallow water. "This is amazing," Clara exclaimed. "Look at all the creatures." But soon enough, they reached a bend in the stream where it widened into a small pond surrounded by lush greenery. The sight was breathtaking. Water lilies floated on the surface while frogs leapt from lily pad to lily pad. Suddenly, Clara heard a soft croaking sound nearby. She turned to see a small green frog sitting on a rock at the edge of the pond. It was looking right at her with big round eyes. "Hello there," Clara said cheerfully. "Do you live here?" The frog blinked slowly before responding in a surprisingly deep voice for such a tiny creature. "Indeed I do. I'm Ferdinand, guardian of this pond." Clara gasped in delight. "A talking frog. This is incredible." Ferdinand chuckled softly. "The woods are filled with wonders if you know where to look." He hopped closer to them and continued, "You seem lost. Perhaps I can assist you on your journey." "Yes, we're trying to find our way back home," Clara explained eagerly. Ferdinand nodded knowingly. "Follow me then. I shall lead you back toward familiar paths." He hopped along the edge of the pond while Clara and Max followed closely behind. As they made their way around the pond and back toward another narrow trail that led deeper into the woods, Clara felt grateful for their new friend's help. With Ferdinand guiding them and Max trotting faithfully by her side, she began to feel less afraid. Just when they thought they were getting closer to home, however, an unexpected sound caught their attention, a rustling noise coming from behind some thick bushes nearby. "What was that?" Clara whispered nervously. Max's ears perked up again as he sniffed at the air cautiously. Ferdinand paused too, looking back at them with wide eyes full of curiosity, and perhaps just a hint of mischief. "Let's find out," he croaked with enthusiasm. Clara took another deep breath as she prepared for whatever lay ahead, her heart racing with excitement once more as they stepped forward together into an unknown adventure. With Ferdinand the Frog leading the way, Clara and Max ventured cautiously toward the source of the rustling sound. The bushes parted slightly, revealing a small clearing bathed in soft sunlight. Clara's heart raced with anticipation. What could be hiding just beyond the foliage? As they stepped into the clearing, Clara gasped at the sight before her. The area was alive with color and movement. Flowers of every hue bloomed in abundance, their petals glistening with morning dew. Butterflies flitted from blossom to blossom, their delicate wings creating a kaleidoscope of patterns in the air. "Welcome to the Glade of Whimsy," Ferdinand announced proudly, puffing out his chest as he hopped forward. "This is a special place where magic thrives and creatures gather to play." Clara's eyes sparkled with wonder as she took in the scene. "It's beautiful," she exclaimed, twirling around in delight. Max bounded after a butterfly, barking playfully as it danced just out of reach. Suddenly, a chorus of laughter echoed through the clearing. Clara turned to see a group of small creatures emerging from behind the flowers, tiny fairies with shimmering wings that sparkled like diamonds in the sunlight. They were no taller than Clara's hand, and each one wore a dress made from petals and leaves. "Hello, little girl." One fairy called out, her voice like tinkling bells. "What brings you to our glade?" "I'm Clara, and this is Max." Clara replied excitedly, pointing to her dog, who had finally stopped chasing butterflies and was now panting happily at her side. "We're exploring the woods," she added. "We got a bit lost but found our way here with Ferdinand's help." The fairies giggled and fluttered closer, their wings creating a gentle breeze that ruffled Clara's hair. "You're not lost anymore. You've found us," another fairy chimed in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Ferdinand cleared his throat and smiled at Clara. "These are the fairies of whimsy. They love to play games and share stories." "Games. I love games," Clara exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. "Then you must join us," one of the fairies said, her wings shimmering brightly as she hovered in front of Clara. "We have a special game that only brave adventurers can play." "What kind of game?" Clara asked eagerly. "It's called Find the Hidden Treasures," the fairy explained. "We will hide shiny objects around the glade, and you must find them before sunset. If you succeed, we'll grant you a wish." "A wish?" Clara gasped, her imagination running wild with possibilities. "What kind of wish?" The fairy winked mischievously. "Anything your heart desires. But you must hurry. Time is short." Clara nodded enthusiastically, feeling a rush of determination. "I'll do it. Max and I will find all your treasures." The fairies clapped their tiny hands in delight and began scattering throughout the glade, each one carrying a small shiny object, gems, coins, and trinkets that sparkled like stars. "Ready, set, go," one fairy shouted as she flew high into the air. Clara took off with Max by her side, scanning the ground for any glimmers that might reveal hidden treasures. She searched behind flowers, under leaves, and even peered into small nooks between rocks. "Look over there," she pointed excitedly as she spotted something shiny half buried in the grass. Max bounded ahead and began digging with his paws. With a little help from Clara, they unearthed a beautiful silver locket that sparkled in the sunlight. "I found one," Clara shouted joyfully as she held it up for everyone to see. "Great job," cheered Ferdinand from nearby as he watched them with pride. Encouraged by their success, Clara continued searching diligently alongside Max. They found colorful marbles hidden beneath ferns and a golden coin tucked away near an old tree stump. As they played together, laughter filled the air, a delightful sound that echoed through the glade. The fairies flitted around them, cheering Clara on as she discovered more treasures hidden among the flowers and grasses. But as time passed and shadows began to lengthen across the clearing, Clara felt a twinge of worry creeping back into her heart. "How many treasures do we need to find?" she asked breathlessly as she wiped her brow. "Just 3 more," one fairy chimed in cheerfully. "You're doing wonderfully." Clara glanced at Max. He seemed just as eager to continue their search. With renewed determination, they pressed on together. Suddenly, as they approached a cluster of vibrant bluebells swaying gently in the breeze, Clara noticed something unusual, a faint glow emanating from beneath one of them. "What's that?" she whispered excitedly to Max. With careful hands, she brushed aside the flowers to reveal an exquisite crystal orb nestled in soft moss. It shimmered with colors that danced like rainbows inside its glassy surface. "I found it! I found it!" Clara squealed with delight as she lifted it high above her head for everyone to see. The fairies erupted into cheers and applause as they gathered around her in excitement. "You've done it! You've found all our treasures!" one fairy exclaimed joyfully. Clara beamed with pride as she looked at her collection, each treasure shining brightly in her hands. "Now for your wish," said another fairy with sparkling eyes. "What do you desire most?" Clara paused for a moment, her heart racing at all the possibilities swirling in her mind. She thought about how much fun she had today, but also about how much she missed her mother waiting back home. "I wish," Clara began slowly, looking around at all her new friends, the fairies who had made this adventure so magical. "I wish for more adventures like this one. Adventures where I can explore and make new friends." The fairies exchanged delighted glances before nodding vigorously in agreement. "A wonderful wish indeed. May your heart always seek adventure." With that, they began to sprinkle shimmering dust over Clara and Max, sparkles that twinkled like stars against their skin and fur. As they stood there surrounded by magic and laughter, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of joy wash over her, a promise that this was just the beginning of many more adventures to come. But just then, a sudden rustling sound broke through their celebration once again. "What now?" Clara wondered aloud as she turned toward the noise, her heart racing once more at what might be waiting just beyond the trees. The rustling sound grew louder, and Clara's heart raced as she turned to face the source of the noise. Max stood beside her, his ears perked up and his body tense, ready for whatever might emerge from the shadows. Suddenly, a small creature burst through the underbrush, a mischievous little fox with bright orange fur and a fluffy tail. He skidded to a halt in front of Clara and the fairies, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Whoa there!" he exclaimed, panting slightly. "What's all this commotion? I heard laughter and thought I'd come see what was happening." Clara relaxed as she recognized the playful spirit in the fox's demeanor. "Hi, I'm Clara, and this is Max." She introduced them both, her voice filled with excitement. "We're exploring the woods and just found some hidden treasures." The fox's ears perked up at the mention of treasures. "Hidden treasures, you say? Count me in. I love a good adventure." Ferdinand hopped forward, eyeing the fox warily. "Now hold on a moment. What's your name, young fox?" "I'm Felix," he replied with a grin. "And I promise I'm not here to cause any trouble. Just looking for some fun." The fairies giggled among themselves, clearly amused by Felix's enthusiasm. "All right then, Felix," one fairy said with a twinkle in her eye. "You can join us. But first, we have a challenge for Clara." "A challenge?" Clara asked, intrigued. "Yes," said another fairy, fluttering excitedly. "Since you've found our treasures, we'd like to test your wits with a riddle. If you solve it, we'll show you something truly magical." Clara's eyes widened with curiosity. "I love riddles. What is it?" The fairy cleared her throat dramatically before reciting. "I have keys but open no locks. I have space but no room. You can enter but not go outside. What am I?" Clara furrowed her brow in concentration, her mind racing as she tried to unravel the riddle. She looked at Max, who tilted his head as if he were pondering it too. Clara murmured, pacing back and forth in the soft grass. "Keys, space, entering but not going outside." Felix watched her closely, his tail twitching with anticipation. "Come on, Clara, you can do it," he encouraged. Clara closed her eyes for a moment and thought about all the things she knew. Suddenly, an idea sparked in her mind. "I know," she exclaimed, her face lighting up with excitement. "It's a keyboard, a piano keyboard." The fairies erupted into cheers and applause as they fluttered around Clara in delight. "Correct. Well done," one fairy exclaimed. "Now for your reward," another fairy said with a grin. "Follow us." With that, the fairies led Clara, Max, and Felix deeper into the glade until they reached an ancient tree that towered above them like a giant sentinel. Its trunk was wide and gnarled, with roots that twisted and turned like serpents. "This is the Tree of Whispers," Ferdinand explained reverently. "It holds the wisdom of the forest within its bark." Clara gazed up at the tree in awe as the fairies began to dance around it in circles. They sang a sweet melody that filled the air with magic. "Watch closely," one fairy called out as they twirled around the tree. As they danced, Clara noticed something extraordinary happening. The bark of the tree began to shimmer and glow softly. Gradually, images started to form on its surface, pictures of animals playing together, children exploring nature, and even glimpses of far-off lands filled with wonder. "This is amazing," Clara gasped as she stepped closer to get a better look. "The Tree of Whispers shows us our dreams and adventures yet to come," Ferdinand explained. "It reveals what lies in your heart." Clara felt a warm sensation spread through her chest as she watched the images dance before her eyes, each one more beautiful than the last. "What do you see?" Felix asked curiously as he peered at the tree alongside her. I see myself exploring new places," Clara replied dreamily. "And making friends everywhere." Goth fairies giggled joyfully at her response. "That's wonderful. Dreams are meant to be shared." Just then, one of the fairies pointed toward an image that had just appeared on the tree, a scene showing Clara standing atop a hill overlooking a vast ocean under a brilliant sunset. "Look at that," she exclaimed. "That could be your next adventure." Clara felt a thrill of excitement course through her veins at the thought of new adventures waiting for her beyond Eldenwood. "But how do I get there?" she wondered aloud. Ferdinand smiled kindly at her. "Every adventure begins with courage and curiosity, just like you showed today." Clara nodded thoughtfully. She felt more confident than ever before. As they continued to watch the images on the Tree of Whispers, Felix suddenly perked up his ears and looked toward the forest edge where shadows danced ominously among the trees. "Do you hear that?" he whispered urgently. Everyone turned their attention toward where Felix was looking, and unsettling silence had fallen over the clearing. "What is it?" Clara asked nervously. "It sounds like something is coming," Felix replied cautiously. Just then, out from behind a thicket, emerged a large creature covered in dark fur. Its eyes glowed eerily in the fading light. "What is that?" Clara gasped as she instinctively took a step back, clutching Max tightly by her side. Ferdinand hopped forward bravely while Felix stood protectively next to Clara. The fairies hovered close together, their wings fluttering nervously as they prepared for whatever might happen next. "Stay calm," Ferdinand instructed firmly. "We'll face this together." As they all stood united against whatever approached from beyond the trees, Clara felt a surge of bravery fill her heart. This was another challenge they would face together. With Max by her side and newfound friends rallying around her, Clara knew they could overcome anything that came their way. The creature stepped into the clearing, revealing itself to be a large, shaggy bear with soft brown fur and gentle eyes. Though its size was intimidating, Clara felt an unexpected warmth radiating from it. The bear paused, sniffing the air as if trying to understand the situation. "Hello there," Ferdinand called out, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We mean you no harm." The bear tilted its head, curiosity replacing any hint of aggression. "I heard laughter and music from the glade," it said in a deep, rumbling voice that echoed through the trees. "I followed the sound, hoping to find friends." Clara's heart began to calm as she realized the bear was not a threat. "We're friends," she exclaimed, stepping forward with Max at her side. "I'm Clara, and this is Max. We've been exploring the woods." The bear's expression softened as it crouched down to their level, its large paws resting gently on the ground. "I am Bruno," he said with a friendly smile. "I often wander these woods alone, but I long for companionship." Clara felt a surge of empathy for Bruno. "You don't have to be alone. You can join us," she offered enthusiastically. Bruno's eyes brightened at her words. "Really, I would like that very much." The fairies fluttered around, their wings sparkling as they welcomed Bruno into their circle. "Come join our adventure," one fairy chimed in. "We were just sharing stories and dreams." As they all settled together in the clearing, Clara felt a sense of warmth and camaraderie enveloping her. She shared her story of how she had come to the woods with Max and how they had met Ferdinand and the fairies. Bruno listened intently, nodding along as Clara recounted her adventures, the treasures they had found and the magic of the Tree of Whispers. The fairies chimed in with their own tales of fun and mischief in the glade. "Every creature here has a story," Ferdinand said wisely. "And together, we create a tapestry of friendship that makes our world brighter." Clara smiled at her new friends. Max wagged his tail happily beside her, while Felix playfully nudged Bruno's paw with his own. Just then, Clara noticed that the sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the clearing. She felt a twinge of worry, she had promised her mother she would return before dinner. I should probably head back home soon, Clara said reluctantly, glancing at Max who seemed to sense her unease. The fairies exchanged glances filled with understanding. Time flows differently in the woods, one fairy explained gently. But you can always return whenever you wish. The magic will welcome you back. Bruno nodded thoughtfully. You have made many friends here today, Clara. And friendship is a bond that lasts beyond time and distance. Clara felt a warmth spread through her heart at his words. I'll definitely come back, she promised earnestly. As they prepared to leave the glade, Ferdinand hopped up onto Clara's shoulder, his tiny body warm against her neck. I will guide you back to Eldenwood, he assured her. Thank you for everything, Clara said to all her friends, Felix, Bruno, and the fairies, who gathered around her for one last farewell. Remember our adventures, one fairy called out as they waved their tiny hands. Don't forget to visit us again, Felix added with a playful grin. With Max by her side and Ferdinand perched on her shoulder, Clara took one last look at the magical glade filled with laughter and friendship before turning toward the path leading back home. As they walked through the woods, Clara felt a sense of joy bubbling inside her. This adventure had been more than just an exploration. It had been about connection and friendship. After what felt like no time at all, they reached the edge of Eldenwood where familiar sights greeted them, the cozy cottages and blooming gardens filled with vibrant colors. There's my house, Clara exclaimed as she spotted her home at the end of the street. Ferdinand hopped down from her shoulder and landed gracefully on the ground. This is where we part ways for now, he said kindly. But remember, every time you hear whispers in the wind or see butterflies dancing in your garden, know that we are always close by. Clara knelt down and hugged Ferdinand tightly. Thank you for everything. I'll never forget this day. With tears of happiness in her eyes, she waved goodbye as she ran toward her house, Max bounding happily beside her. As she reached the front door, Clara turned back one last time to see Ferdinand waving from beneath a tree while Felix and Bruno stood nearby, their forms blending into the shadows of twilight. See you soon, Clara called out before rushing inside. Her mother was waiting for her with open arms, a look of relief washing over her face as Clara burst through the door. Oh Clara, I was so worried about you, Mrs. Thompson exclaimed as she knelt down to embrace her daughter tightly. I'm sorry, but I had an amazing adventure in the woods. Clara replied breathlessly as she recounted everything, the treasures they found, meeting Oliver, dancing with fairies, and making new friends like Bruno and Felix. As Mrs. Thompson listened with wide eyes filled with wonderment, Clara realized how special this day had been, an adventure that had brought new friendships into her life and memories that would last forever. That night, as she lay tucked under her covers with Max curled up beside her, Clara closed her eyes and smiled at all that had happened. She could still feel the magic of the woods lingering in her heart, a promise of more adventures yet to come. And as sleep began to take over, she whispered softly into the night sky, "Thank you for today, I can't wait for tomorrow." The morning sun peeked through Clara's window, casting warm rays across her room and gently waking her from a peaceful slumber. As she stretched and opened her eyes, memories of her adventure in the enchanted woods flooded back, each moment filled with laughter, magic, and newfound friends. "Good morning, Max," Clara said cheerfully as she sat up in bed. The golden retriever lifted his head, wagging his tail in response, his eyes bright with excitement for the day ahead. After breakfast, Clara couldn't contain her enthusiasm. "Mom, can we go to the woods today?" she asked, her heart racing at the thought of returning to the magical place where she had made so many friends. Mrs. Thompson smiled knowingly. "Of course, Clara, but remember to stay close to the path and be careful." Clara nodded eagerly, already imagining all the adventures that awaited her. After grabbing her backpack, this time filled with snacks for herself and treats for Max, she set off toward the woods with a bounce in her step. As she entered the familiar tree line, Clara felt a rush of joy wash over her. The air was filled with the sweet scent of pine and wildflowers, and the sound of birds chirping created a cheerful symphony around her. "Let's go find Oliver first," Clara said to Max as they walked along the winding path. She remembered how wise and kind he had been during their last adventure. After a short walk, they reached a clearing where Oliver often perched on a low branch. Clara called out, "Oliver, are you here?" A moment later, The wise old owl swooped down gracefully from above and landed beside her. "Good morning, Clara. It's wonderful to see you again. I'm back for more adventures," Clara exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Can you show me something new today?" Oliver nodded thoughtfully. "Ah, but today is not just about adventure. It's about understanding the magic within yourself and the world around you." Clara tilted her head curiously. "What do you mean?" "Come," Oliver said, gesturing for her to follow him deeper into the woods. "There is something special I want to show you." As they walked together, Oliver shared stories about the forest, the importance of every creature and plant that lived there and how each played a role in maintaining balance in nature. "Every being has its purpose," Oliver explained as they passed by a family of deer grazing peacefully nearby. "Even the smallest insect contributes to the beauty of our world." Clara listened intently, absorbing every word. She felt a deep appreciation for all living things around her, the flowers swaying in the breeze, the birds singing high above, and even Max trotting happily beside her. Eventually, they arrived at a serene pond surrounded by tall reeds and colorful wildflowers. The surface of the water was so still it mirrored the sky above like a perfect glass canvas. "This is the pond of reflection," Oliver said softly. "Here, you can see not only your reflection but also your true self, your dreams, your hopes, and your potential." Clara approached the edge of the pond cautiously and gazed into its depths. At first, she saw just her own reflection, a girl with bright eyes and golden curls, but as she focused more intently, images began to swirl within the water. She saw herself exploring distant lands filled with vibrant cultures and new friends, children laughing as they played games together under sunny skies. She envisioned herself helping animals in need and caring for nature's wonders. "I can do all this," Clara whispered in awe. "Yes," Oliver replied gently. "You have within you the power to create your own adventures and make a difference in the world." Clara felt a surge of inspiration coursing through her veins. "I want to help others. I want to explore new places." Oliver nodded approvingly. "And remember that friendship is one of life's greatest treasures. Cherish those connections, for they will guide you through both challenges and joys." Just then, Max barked excitedly as he splashed playfully at a dragonfly hovering above the water's surface. Clara laughed at his antics but also felt grateful for his unwavering companionship. "I promise I'll always cherish my friends," Clara said earnestly as she looked back at Oliver. With newfound determination swirling inside her heart, Clara turned away from the pond feeling invigorated by what she had learned. "Thank you for showing me this place," she said gratefully to Oliver. "It is my pleasure," he replied with a wise smile. "Now go forth and share your light with others." As they made their way back through the woods toward Eldenwood, Clara felt different, more confident and aware of all that lay ahead of her. Upon reaching home later that day, Clara found herself bursting with stories to share with her mother about everything she had experienced, not just in terms of adventure but also about understanding herself and nature's magic. That evening at dinner, Clara spoke animatedly about Oliver's lessons on friendship and purpose while Max rested contentedly at her feet. Mrs. Thompson listened intently as she watched Clara glow with excitement. "You've learned so much today. I'm proud of you for embracing your curiosity." After dinner, as night fell over Eldenwood and stars twinkled brightly in the sky outside her window, Clara snuggled into bed feeling grateful for everything, the adventures she had experienced in the enchanted woods and all the friendships she had forged along the way. As sleep began to take over once more, Clara whispered softly into the night, "Thank you for my friends, thank you for my adventures, I can't wait for tomorrow." And as dreams filled her mind, of magical creatures dancing under moonlight and endless possibilities waiting just beyond tomorrow, Clara knew deep down that this was only the beginning of an incredible journey filled with friendship, exploration, and endless wonder.